Welcome back to Vintage Camera Digest. Today we're going to take a look at what I think might be one of the best travel tripods I've used, the Neewer LT32. So stick around. When it comes to tripods, we literally have hundreds of choices, and it's super easy to get overwhelmed with all the options and the specs. I'm always in search of that holy grail of tripods, one that's light, sturdy, durable, capable of handling sufficient weight, compact, and flexible in height. I want one that I can use to shoot at eye level as well as close to the ground. All of my tripods meet at least one of those requirements. For example, this Manfrotto. It is classic, and it is the sturdiest one I have. And probably the most durable. It will support a ton of weight. It might even come close to supporting me, but it isn't light. It's over 12 pounds and almost 6 kilos. It's not compact, and it doesn't allow for shooting at a low height unless you remove the head and reattach it to the bottom of the center column. It can be done, it's just a bit of a pain. It will, however, allow for shooting at a height of about 8 feet, though, if you have the optional leg extensions. And the main sections of the legs are locked into place with these simple screw knobs. This is a tripod that can take a lot of abuse and still last for decades. But it's definitely not one I'm going to travel with. When I need to travel with one, I have a couple of options. When I went to Italy 2 years ago, I took my Bronica S2A and I packed these Benro legs with a per gear ball head in the luggage. The legs are small and relatively compact, but they are not the lightest of the choices I have. The way I have it set up here with a three-way pan head, it weighs in at about 5.5 pounds or about 2.6 kilos. But this tripod does feature good clasps that you can tighten up with a hex key if they ever get loose. And I do like having these clasps instead of those twist style locks. Clasps are usually adjustable, but when those twist things fail, there's not much you can do with it. The lightest legs category is going to be won by this Oben, and I have no idea what the model number is because it's since been worn off. It's not as compact as the Benro legs, and it uses these plastic clasps that are not adjustable. And if this thing ever fails, that's where it's going to happen. I did take this tripod with the per gear ball head on my recent hike to the waterfalls. It was light-ish, but it was a bit bulky to attach to the backpack or the camera bag. Its total weight in this configuration, though, is just over 4 pounds or 1.9 kilos. But lucky for me, the good folks at Neewer reached out and asked if I'd like to review one of their tripods, and I could make the choice of which one, which is cool because I got to approach it from a shopper's perspective. Given all the options they have, which one really stands out to me as something that could make my photography life a bit easier? Well, it was this one, the Neewer LT32. And what grabbed my attention is this, the head. It's totally different than any other tripod head that I have and is absolutely the lightest and the most compact. This thing only weighs 2.6 pounds or 1.2 kilos. When it's folded, it's only 17 inches or about 43 centimeters long, but the legs are made of 5 carbon fiber sections which extend to 52 inches or 1.3 meters. If you want to extend the center column too, you get about 62 inches or 1.6 meters. And they have metal locking clasps that you can tighten if they get loose. The angles of the legs can also be adjusted for low shooting. Just press this lever and adjust to one of the 2 additional angles. If you want to use the lowest possible height, unscrew the bottom section of the center column and you can now shoot at a height of about 8 inches or only 20 centimeters. Now let's talk about the head. The design sort of borrows from video tripods that use bowl mounts. This makes it easy to level, and you can adjust and lock the position just with this single lever here. But the thing that surprises me is just how little vertical space it occupies. But with that comes a bit of a compromise, as this exists right out of the box, the ability to shoot vertically. I can raise the center column up, and I can adjust the head this way and lock it, but I can't tilt the camera up and down at this point. If you have a L bracket or use a camera cage that you use with your camera, that can solve this problem since you can just mount your camera on the tripod in vertical to begin with. But if you don't have one of those, you can add this accessory. The Neewer website calls it a leveling base, but it's really a panoramic release plate. It's just like the stock release plate with the added ability to pan and lock into position. And it's pretty compact too. So that solves the vertical shooting issue, and it does come with a tripod if you purchase the LT32 bundle. If you don't need to shoot vertically though, like when using a 6x6 square format, the stock head and quick release plate works just fine. The quick release plate is rather small at 38 millimeters, but it fits Arca Swiss and Peak Design accessories, and it fits very solidly on the head. All you need to do to release it is push the release button, and it pops right out. To reattach it, just press it into place. There's also a safety lock on the release button that's supposed to keep me from accidentally releasing it. You just slide the button that way. Now it's locked. Now let's talk about the extras. Yes, there is more that comes in the box. Earlier I mentioned that the clasps on the legs were metal and adjustable. Well, you can adjust them with the included hex key that's screwed into the bottom of the center column. It fits every hex nut on the tripod as well as the screw on the quick release plate. If you decide to get the bundle that includes the panoramic plate, they include a larger hex key you can use to secure it to the camera. Another bonus is the included spike feet that you can swap out with the regular rubber feet. You just unscrew them and replace. And maybe the coolest bonus is a flat base adapter that allows you to mount most any other type of head. So if you have a favorite ball head, for example, you can absolutely swap it out with the standard one. You can remove the stock one by unscrewing it. Then just screw the flat base adapter onto the top of the center column. Now it's ready for whatever head you might already have around. And besides the 1/4 inch screw, the adapter also comes with a 3/8 inch screw adapter. And last but not least, it comes with a handy case, which is good for helping a great tripod stay great. I think a lot of us, and myself included, sometimes don't treat our tripods as well as we do the rest of our gear. We wouldn't think of not having our cameras in a case or a bag, but then just toss our tripods around like they're indestructible. I suppose it's not always convenient, but I'm trying to be more mindful of how I treat my tripods, so this one's going to be kept in the bag when not in use. Now I know y'all are wondering about how much weight this will support. Well, the stock head is rated at 10 pounds or 4.5 kilos, and the legs are rated at 22 pounds or 10 kilos. That's a lot of weight. But let's put it into some perspective. My Pentax 67 here weighs 5.2 pounds or 2.3 kilos with the 90mm 2.8. And if I put it on the tripod, it's solid as a rock. And I've mounted it to the panoramic plate. So if I get it configured for vertical shooting, I'm raising this up just a bit, locking it down. It's still solid. And of course, if you want, you can always add a little counterweight like your camera bag to the bottom of the center column to lower that center of gravity. If you're shooting square format like with this Bronica S2A, you can just use the stock release plate since you don't need to shoot vertically. Now all of this, the tripod, the extras, make up an incredibly flexible system that's just perfect for traveling. So let's take this camera and a couple of rolls of film and get out there for a shoot. Well, I'm out here with the Neewer LT32 carbon fiber travel tripod, and I've got my Bronica S2A out here, 6x6 shooter. And the reason I'm using 6x6 square format is because I want to just take advantage of this really low profile head that we have here. I'm not going to shoot vertical because it's square, so I don't have to allow for that. Even though I do have the thing that would make that work, this has given me an excuse to get out here with the 6x6 and the challenge of composing for square. I've got Kent Mirror 100 in the camera. I've got the 75mm lens on, and my first shot is going to be this old tree stump with the lichen growing out the side. It's got a lot of texture. We've got some depth going back through here. I want to blur out the background a little bit. But there is one little weed that's sticking up right over on this side of the frame that's in the background. It's sort of late in the afternoon. It's not golden hour by any stretch of the imagination. So let's try for the first shot. Got the Minolta Spot Meter F. As far as highlight and shadows go, the only highlight is really the lichen on the tree here. but that's not really bright. There's not really much dark shadow because we've got a lot of soft light coming from this big patch of sky right here. So I'm probably gonna shoot for something just as a mid-tone, which could be any of this just about. So let's go with let's see, something for f8. Well, that's 2.8 right there. I don't want that. Let's see if we go f8. So that would give me about 1/15 of a second at 5.6 and a half. So now we've got a little bit of light coming through. That's interesting. I wonder how long that will stay. Probably not long. But that's cool. We got a nice little patch of light here in the foreground. So let's try to get something off there. 11, 5, 6, 8. So I'm going f8 at 1/8 of a second. So definitely need the tripod for this. All right, dark slide out. Let's make sure we're focused. Get a slightly different angle to take more advantage of this light in the front. Yep, so I'm loosening up the head there. Same exposure. I'll go around this way just a little bit to see if there's anything else from this angle. Actually, that's not a bad shot there. Don't really have much in the background though. I do like having this little weed though in the back. All right, let's raise the camera. Let's tilt the camera up just a little bit. I'll release that lever. So we've got this little pool of light here, direct sun coming in from in between a limb up there in the back. So again, I'm gonna be looking for a middle gray. And there's a lot out here that fits that. So my biggest highlight is f16, but it's not really something I would want to be solid white. We got a 5.6 there, 5.6 there, 5.6 there. We've got some darker area in the back. Let's go back down to 1/8 of a second and see what we have. 8 there, 11, 22. All right, so we're gonna go back to f8 at 1/8 of a second, just like before. And I'm going to open it up just slightly, like maybe to 5.6 and a half, just for some bracketing. Before I move on from this spot, I'm gonna look to see if there's another shot here. I bet there might be. Yeah, because we've got some really cool lichen over on this other side, lit by the sun. So let me get on that. So just over on the other side of the stump, we've got this area right here. It's in direct sun. We've got some shadow. We've got just this nice little pool of light coming in here, showing this texture. And these are some really interesting organic formations here. So let's quickly get a reading. Like I said, I'm going for middle gray. So that's about the color of the overall stump there. So 1/8 of a second at f8, which is the same thing that we've had. I want to get this going before we lose this good light. All right, let's shoot this. I'm also going to shoot it at 1/4 of a second. Just for some bracketing. You know, I've got my cable release. I probably should get that, shouldn't I? All right, so now we've lost a lot of the light except for this little bit right there. So we're going to shoot this again just like that. I'm definitely not through with this spot. I've got other lenses May try to shoot something with the 150 just to see what sort of difference that makes. That's going to compress depth of field some, which may be what I want right here for this. We'll swap the lenses and see. By the way, this is sturdy as all get out. Sturdy, sturdy, sturdy. And when I change lenses, I'm going to get the cable release too, like I should be doing already. Before I move on or change lenses, I've got one other shot here. So we've got this big chunk that's missing out of the stump right here. And then we've got these formations right here. And that makes a very interesting composition, I think. So I'm gonna shoot it at f11 this time, just to make sure I get good depth of field of light. The little highlight lights that we had before, they're gone. So now we've got a very soft lighting situation. And at f11, that's gonna be 1/2 of a second, or let's say, yeah, 1/2 of a second at 11. All right, cable release. I said I was gonna get that and then didn't. So as I've waited and goofed off for a little bit, now we've got another little pool of light right here in the middle. I'm gonna leave the exposure just as we had it set, 1/2 of a second at f11. And let's also go 1/2 of a second at f8. Right, I was gonna change lenses. All right, I'm gonna change lenses, put the 150 on. So, got this little pool of light coming in right there on the end of this boardwalk. There's some pools of it out there in the back. Normally this kind of thing wouldn't really catch my attention, but I spent some time around a very smart photographer a couple weeks ago who loves stuff like this and said, you know, it's worth looking at. So, I like to think that I've learned something to increase my creativity, to inspire me. So let's spot meter this before I lose the light. So the highlight on that part there is, all right, so that's f22. The shadows there, f2. So I'm gonna do a highlight and shadow measurement on this. So let's put the shutter speed up to 1/60th of a second. And I've got the 150mm lens on here. So 1.4 is my shadow. Put that into memory. The highlight's gonna be that board right there on the end. Put that in memory. That's gonna give me f5.6 at 1/60th of a second. Shadow. 1/60th of a second at f4.5. Yeah, so let's do bracket that a little bit. So 1/60th of a second, f4.5, or f4 as far as we got here. That is one roll of film. So I've set up a shot to take advantage of being able to put this low. I could go lower than this, and it may be cool to go lower than this. I'll see after this. But what I've got a nice long boardwalk here. I've got the 50mm lens on here, so it's wide. I'm gonna shoot it at an f-stop of about f11 to give me some decent depth of field down through here. But we've got these little pools of light here and there, and then we've got some big light in the background there. So hopefully that's gonna give us the impression of some depth. So first of all, what I need to check out is to look for my shadow areas. It's f1. All right, so let's reduce the shutter speed. Let's go let's go 1/15th of a second. The highlights in the back are at f22. So really that's gonna be my highlight area way back there in the back. So that's f22. Put that in memory, And F2 is a shadow point. Put that in memory. That gives me 1/15 of a second at about F8. So I want to shoot at F11. So let's give me 1/8 of a second at F11. Let's just change the shutter speed to 1/4 of a second. All right, so at the other end of this boardwalk, I was way down at the other end, so I've come to this side, and we've got sun coming through here. We've got some diagonal shadows here on the foreground, some distinct shadows. And then we've got this little pool of light, and it just fades into soft shadow in the back. So this is definitely gonna be a shot. Clear that memory, looking for a highlight point. So that's F22. Let's look for a shadow point. That's way back there in the back. It's F4. That's definitely the shadow point though. All right, so let's go. All right, so 1/30th of a second. And what is that shadow giving me? F2. Let's put that in memory. My highlight point there is F11. Put that in memory. So 5.6 at 30th of a second. And I'm gonna bracket this just to be safe. 5.6, 1/30th of a second at 5.6. And I don't want it super deep depth of field here. And let's also go 1/15th of a second at 5.6. The first negative thing I can say about this tripod is that the push to unlock lever here, it's too easy to unlock it just by grabbing the tripod. I probably should grab the tripod by the legs instead of up around the head, because when I do that, my thumb or my finger, depending on where it is, unlocks the lock lever. And you missed it because it was off camera, but I picked up this tripod and the camera fell right off into the mud because I inadvertently hit that lever. Even though it is locked, it's just too easy to unlock, I think. So I'm having to figure out the best place to have it. Should I have it over on this side? Should I have it in the back? Should I have it in the front? Because I can place it anywhere I want. Or I should just not grab the tripod underneath like that. It's a little bit too easy to unlock though, so I might have to ding it a star for that. Because now, at least the lens didn't go head first into the mud. So, good grief. Found another spot here. We've got this sort of boardwalk plank thing that runs out into the swamp. And then we've got the boardwalk across in the back. We've got some of that sun, some of those sun pools back there. We got some reflection here in the water. So I want to get some super deep depth of field out of this. And is that going to be easy to do? So I'm at F16. And using the depth of field preview, I'm sort of getting an idea. All right, so my highlight spot is definitely the sky reflection here. All right, let's change to a shutter speed of 1/30th of a second. So that back there in the back is 11.5. That's a highlight. Is that the brightest spot? I don't think so. F2, that's definitely gonna be my shadow point. So let's put that into memory. All right, let's put that into memory as well. Which gives me 1/30th of a second at f5.6, but I want f16. So we are going to go 1/2 of a second at f16. Let's go 1/4 of a second at f16. Now let's go 1 second at f22, even though I usually don't want to shoot at f22 because of diffraction, but we'll see. All right. I've swapped lenses. I've put the 150mm on. So I'm going to focus in on this tree right here with the lichen and that texture. But in the background there, we have a nice pool of light. So hopefully that, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to throw it out of focus just so it's sort of this ambiguous glow. But hopefully get enough depth of field on this trunk to render it mostly sharp. So I'm going to clear the memory of what I've got there. Let's start with a shutter speed of 1/60th of a second and see just where. All right, so that spot in the back is definitely the highlight. So that's f8. Let's put that in memory. And where is my shadow? That's f1. Let's put that in memory. And that gives me 1/60th of a second at 2.8. If we drop that to, let's try 5.6. So 1/15th of a second at 5.6. All right. Let's see, I've got just a couple more shots left. Let's find something else and finish this up. So unfortunately, you didn't get to see this last shot because, see this little pool of light on the tree stump? That was way down here toward the bottom with this little bit of lichen there. I knew that by the time I got the camera set up, got the audio mic, got the spot meter turned, this would be gone. And yep, it's already shifted. So you didn't see me get that shot, but that's what I did. So this area here had a nice beam of light coming through. This right here was in shadow. So we got some contrast in tone, and hopefully that will turn out nice. So that's 2 rolls of film on this sturdy tripod, except for that little switch you gotta be careful with. I do like the tripod a lot. I would give it 4 stars straight up right now. And I'd give it 5 stars if that little lock lever wasn't as easy to unlock just by grabbing it around the base. So I've got to, you know, you've got to think about that. But it's super compact, sturdy, it's easy, I like it. I'll use it a lot. All right, back to the house. Well, despite the one glitch with the locking lever, I do really like this tripod. It never felt flimsy. It was completely solid. I like the ability to shoot at a really low angle, and I like that the stock head is adjusted with just one lever. The glitch, of course, was me grabbing the tripod by the head and accidentally unlocking that safety lever. That lever is probably a bit too easy to unlock. And if there's anything I'm going to take points off for, it's going to be that. But despite that, I'm pretty sure this is my new favorite travel, hiking, adventure tripod. As I said at the beginning, it pretty much meets all my requirements. It's light, it's sturdy, it's compact, it can handle a lot of weight, and is really flexible as far as shooting heights go, from 20 centimeters all the way up to 1.6 meters. And as for price, it's around $240 US. If you add the panoramic release plate, it'll run about $270 US. I know that's not an insignificant amount of money for a tripod, but for a carbon fiber compact tripod, that's about half the price of some others that are out there. And if y'all haven't taken a look at all the tripods Neewer offers, I suggest you check them out. They have tiny mini tripods, big pro spec video tripods, and everything in between. I'll put a link down in the description that'll take you right to their site. This is one company that's really evolved over the last 10 years, building better and better camera gear. They've really come a long way in that time, offering great equipment at very competitive pricing. So thanks to Neewer for the opportunity to try this out. You will definitely see me using this. So thanks again for stopping by the channel. If you found this video helpful, be sure to leave a like, and better yet, subscribe. I know it seems like I've been missing in action the last couple of months, but I've been putting a bunch of great content together behind the scenes. For example, next up will be a comparison between the Mamiya RB67 and the RZ67. That was a lot of fun because I'd never used either of those cameras before. Also coming up will be sort of a rundown on compact 35mm cameras. Cameras like the Olympus 35 RC and RD, the Raleigh 35 SE, the Contax T1, just to name a few. I also have several episodes coming up dedicated to rangefinders, like the Canon Canonet QL17, the Kodak Signet 35 and 40, and one of the classiest cameras, I think, the Konica 3A. Maybe I'll do another poll and let y'all decide which of those to cover first. And it's time for the next video installment of the Nikon F system, the Nikon F3 HP. So, lots of good stuff coming up you won't want to miss. And I'll see you next time.